12.2 Types of Outlines. When we discuss outlining, we are actually focusing on a series of outlines instead of a single one. Outlines are designed to evolve throughout your speech preparation process, so this section will discuss how you progress from a working outline to a full sentence outline, and finally, a speaking outline. We will also discuss how using note cards for your speaking outline can be helpful to you as a speaker. Working outline. A working outline is an outline you use for developing your speech. It undergoes many changes on its way to completion. This is the outline where you lay out the basic structure of your speech. You must have a general and specific purpose, an introduction, including a grabber, and a concrete, specific thesis statement and preview. You also need 3 main points, a conclusion, and a list of references. One strategy for beginning your working outline is to begin by typing in your labels for each of the elements. Later, you can fill in the content. When you look ahead to the full sentence outline, you will notice that each of the 3 main points moves from the general to the particular. Specifically, each main point is a claim, followed by a particular information that supports that claim, so that the audience will perceive its validity. For example, for a speech about coal mining safety, your first main point might focus on the idea that coal mining is a hazardous occupation. You might begin by making a very general claim, such as, coal mining is one of the most hazardous occupations in the United States, and then become more specific by providing statistics, authoritative quotations, or examples to support your primary claim. A working outline allows you to work out the kinks in your message. For instance, let's say you've made a claim that coal mining is a hazardous occupation, but you can't find authoritative evidence as support. Now you must re-examine that main point to assess its validity. You might have to change the main point in order to be able to support it. If you do so, however, you must make sure that the new main point is a logical part of the thesis statement, 3 main points, and conclusion sequence. The working outline shouldn't be thought of as a rough copy, but as a careful step in the development of your message. It'll take time to develop. Here's an example of a working outline. Name, Anomaly May McGillicuddy. Topic, Smart Dust. General purpose, to inform. Specific purpose, to inform a group of science students about the potential of smart dust. Main ideas. 1. Smart dust is an assembly of microcomputers. 2. Smart dust can be used by the military. No, smart dust could be an enormous asset in covert military operations. That's better, because it's more clear and precise. 3. Smart dust could also have applications to daily life. Introduction, grabber, fill in later. Thesis statement. Thus far, researchers hypothesize that smart dust could be used for everything from tracking patients in hospitals to early warnings of natural disasters and defending against bioterrorism. Preview. Today I'm going to explain what smart dust is and the various applications smart dust has in the near future. To help us understand the small of it all, we will first examine what smart dust is and how it works. We will then examine some military applications of smart dust, and we will end by discussing some non-military applications of smart dust. Transition. Fill in later. Main point 1. Dr. Chris Peister, a professor in the robotics lab at the University of California at Berkeley, originally conceived the idea of smart dust in 1998 as part of a project funded by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. 1. Supporting point. 2. Supporting point. Transition. Fill in later. Main point 2. Because smart dust was originally conceptualized under a grant from DARPA, military uses of smart dust have been widely theorized and examined. 1. Supporting point. 2. Supporting point. Transition. Fill in later. Main point 3. According to the Smart Dust Project website, smart dust could quickly become a common part of our everyday lives. 1. Supporting point. 2. Supporting point. Transition. Fill in later. Conclusion. Bring your message full circle and create a psychologically satisfying closure. This stage of preparation turns out to be a good place to go back and examine whether all the main points are directly related to the thesis statement and to each other. If so, your message has strong potential for unity of focus. But if the relationship of one of the main points is weak, this is the time to strengthen it. It will be more difficult later for 2 reasons. First, the sheer amount of text on your pages will make the visual task more difficult, and second, it becomes increasingly difficult to change things in which you have a large investment in time and thought. You can see that this working outline can lay a strong foundation for the rest of your message. Its organization is visually apparent. Once you're confident in the internal unity of your basic message, you can begin in the supporting points in you can begin filling in the supporting points in descending detail. That is, from the general, or main points, to the particular, supporting points, and then to greater detail. The outline makes it visually apparent where this information fits. You only need to assess your supporting points to be sure they're authoritative and directly relevant to the main points they should support. Some transitions seem troublesome, and that's not surprising. We often omit them when we have informal conversations. Our conversation partners understand what we mean because of our gestures and vocal strategies. However, others might not understand what we mean, but think they do, so we might never know whether they understood us. Even when we include transitions, we don't generally identify them as transitions. In a speech, however, we need to use effective transitions as a gateway from one main point to the next. The listener needs to know when a speaker is moving from one main point to the next one. In the next type of outline, the full sentence outline, take a look at the transitions and see how they make the listener aware of the shifting focus to the next main point. Full sentence outline. Your full sentence outline should contain full sentences only. There are several reasons why this kind of outline is important. First, you have a full plan of everything you intend to say to your audience so that you will not have to struggle with wording or examples. Second, you have a clear idea of how much time it will take to present your speech. Third, it contributes a fundamental ingredient of good preparation, part of your ethical responsibility to your audience. This is how a full sentence outline looks. Name, Anomaly May McGillicuddy. Topic, Smart Dust. General purpose, to inform. Specific purpose, to inform a group of science students about the potential of smart dust. Main ideas. 1. Smart dust is an assembly of microcomputers. 2. Smart dust could be an enormous asset in covert military operations. 3. Smart dust could also have applications to daily life. Introduction. Grabber. In 2002, famed science fiction writer Michael Crichton released his book Prey, which was about a swarm of nanomachines that were feeding off live tissue. The nanomachines were solar-powered, self-sufficient, and intelligent. Most disturbingly, the nanomachines could work together as a swarm as it took over and killed its prey in its need for new resources. The technology for this level of sophistication in nanotechnology is surprisingly more science than science fiction. In 2000, 3 professors of electrical engineering and computer science at the University of California at Berkeley, Kahns, Katz, and Peister, hypothesized in the Journal of Communications and Networks that wireless networks of tiny micro-electromechanical sensors, or MEMS, robots, or devices could detect phenomena including light, temperature, or vibration. By 2004, Fortune magazine listed smart dust as the first in their top 10 tech trends to bet on. Thesis statement. Thus far, researchers hypothesized that smart dust could be used for everything from tracking patients in hospitals to early warnings of natural disasters and as a defense against bioterrorism. Preview. Today I'm going to explain what smart dust is and the various applications smart dust has in the near future. To help us understand the small of it all, we will first examine what smart dust is and how it works. We will then examine some military applications of smart dust, and we will end by discussing some non-military applications of smart dust. Transition. To help us understand smart dust, we will begin by first examining what smart dust is. Main point 1. Dr. Chris Peister, a professor in the robotics lab at the University of California at Berkeley, originally conceived the idea of smart dust in 1998 as part of a project funded by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA. According to a 2001 article written by Brett Warnke, Matt Last, Brian Leibowitz, and Chris Peister titled Smart Dust, Communicating with a Cubic Millimeter Computer, published in Computer, Peister's goal was to build a device that contained a built-in sensor, communication device, and a small computer that could be integrated integrated into cubic millimeter package. For comparison purposes, Doug Steele, in a 2005 white paper titled Smart Dust, written for C.T. Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston, noted that a single grain of rice has a volume of 5 cubic millimeters. Each individual piece of dust, called a mote, would then have the ability to interact with the other motes and supercomputers. As Steve Lohr wrote in the January 30th, 2010 edition of the New York Times in an article titled Smart Dust, not quite, but we're getting there, smart dust could eventually consist of tiny digital sensors strewn around the globe, gathering all sorts of information and communicating with powerful computer networks to monitor, measure, and understand the physical world in new ways. Transition. Now that we've examined what smart dust is, let's switch gears and talk about some of the military applications for smart dust. Main point 2. Because smart dust was originally conceptualized under a grant from DARPA, military uses of smart dust have been widely theorized and examined. According to the Smart Dust website, smart dust could eventually be used for battlefield surveillance, treaty monitoring, transportation monitoring, scud hunting, and other clear military applications. 1. Probably the number one benefit of smart dust in the military environment is its surveillance abilities. Major Scott Dickinson, in a Blue Horizons paper written for the U.S. Air Force Center for Strategy and Technology's Air War College, sees smart dust as helping the military in battle space awareness, homeland security, and weapons of mass destruction identification. 2. Furthermore, Major Dixon also believes it may be possible to create smart dust that has the ability to defeat communications jamming equipment created by foreign governments, which could help the U.S. military not only communicate among itself, but could also increase communications with civilians in military combat zones. 2. According to a 2010 article written by Jessica Griggs in New Scientist, one of the first benefits of smart dust could be an early defense warning for space storms and other debris that could be catastrophic. Transition. Now that we've explored some of the military benefits of smart dust, let's switch gears and see how smart dust may be able to have an impact in our daily lives. Main point 3. According to the Smart Dust Project website, smart dust could quickly become a common part of our daily lives. Everything from pasting smart dust particles to our fingertips, to creating virtual computer keyboard, to inventory control, to product quality control have been discussed as possible applications for smart dust. Steve Lohr, in his 2010 New York Times article, wrote, "The applications for sensor-based computing, experts say, including buildings that manage their own energy use, bridges that sense motion and metal fatigue to tell engineers they need repairs, cars that track traffic patterns and report potholes, and fruit and vegetable shipments that tell grocers when they ripen and begin to spoil." Medically, according to the Smart Dust website, smart dust could help disabled individuals interface with computers. Theoretically, we could all be injected with smart dust, which relays information to our physicians and detects adverse changes to our body instantly. Smart dust could detect the microscopic formations of center cells or alert us when we've been infected by a bacterium or virus, which could speed up treatment and prolong all our lives. Transition. Today we explored what smart dust is, how smart dust could be utilized by the U.S. military, and how smart dust could impact all of our lives in the near future. Conclusion. While smart dust is quickly transferring from science fiction to science fact, experts agree that the full potential of smart dust will probably not occur until 2025. Smart dust is definitely in our near future, but swarms of smart dust eating people, as was depicted in Michael Crichton's 2002 novel Prey, isn't a reality. However, as with any technological advance, there are definite ethical considerations and worries related to smart dust. Even Dr. Chris Peister's Smart Dust Project website admits that as smart dust becomes more readily available, one of the trade-offs will be privacy. Peister responds to these critiques by saying, "As an engineer, or a scientist, or a hairstylist, everyone needs to evaluate what they do in terms of its positive and negative effect. If I thought that the negatives of working on this project were greater than or even comparable to the positives, I wouldn't be working on it. As it turns out, I think the potential benefit of this technology far outweighs the risks to personal privacy. Then there's a list of the references this person used in creating their speech. When you prepare your full sentence outline carefully, it may take as much as 1.5 hours to complete the first part of the outline from your name at the top through the introduction. When you've completed that part, take a break and do something else. When you return to the outline, you should be able to complete your draft in another 1.5 hours. After that, you only need to do a detailed check for completeness, accuracy, relevance, balance, omitted words, and consistency. If you find errors, instead of being frustrated, be glad you can catch these errors before you're standing up in front of your audience. You'll notice that the various parts of your speech, for instance, the transition and main points, are labeled. There are compelling reasons for these labels. First, as you develop your message, you will sometimes find it necessary to go back and look at your wording in another part of the outline. Your labels help you to find particular passages easily. Second, the labels work as a checklist so that you can make sure you've included everything you intend to. Third, it helps you prepare your speaking outline. You will also notice the full reference at the end of the outline. They match the citations with the outline. Sometimes, while preparing a speech, a speaker finds it important to go back to an original source to be sure that the message will be accurate. When you type in your references as you develop your speech, rather than afterward, they will be a convenience to you if they are complete and accurate. Don't think of the references as busy work or drudgery. Although they're more time-consuming than text, they are good practice for the more advanced academic work you will do in the immediate future. Speaking outline. Your full sentence outline prepares you to present a clear and well-organized message, but your speaking outline will include far less detail. Whenever possible, you will use keywords and phrases, but in some instances, an extended quotation will need to be fully written on your speaking outline. Resist the temptation to use your full sentence outline as your speaking outline. The temptation is real for at least 2 reasons. First, once you feel that you've carefully crafted every sentence of words in your speech, you might not want to sacrifice quality when you shift to vocal presentations. Second, if you feel anxiety about how well you do in front of an audience, you may want to use your full sentence outline as a safety net. In our experience, however, if you have your full sentence outline with you, you'll end up reading rather than speaking to your audience. The subject of reading to your audience will be taken up in Chapter 14, Delivering the Speech. For now, it's enough to know you shouldn't read, but instead use carefully prepared note cards. Your speech has 5 main components: introduction, main point 1, main point 2, main point 3, and the conclusion. Therefore, we strongly recommend the use of 5 note cards, 1 for each of those 5 components. There are extenuating circumstances that may call for additional cards, but begin with 5 cards only. How will 5 note cards suffice in helping you produce a complete, rich delivery? Why can't you use the full sentence outline you labored so hard to write? Well, first, the presence of your full sentence outline will make it appear that you don't know the content of your speech. Second, the temptation to read the speech directly from the full sentence outline is nearly overwhelming. Even if you resist this temptation, you will find yourself struggling to remember the words on the page, rather than speaking extemporaneously. Third, sheets of paper are noisier and more awkward than cards. Fourth, it's easier to lose your place using the full outline. Finally, cards just look better. Carefully prepared cards, together with practice, will help you more than you might think. Plan to use 5 cards. Use 4x6 cards. The smaller 3x5 cards are too small to provide space for a visually organized set of notes. With 5 cards, you will have 1 card for the introduction, 1 for each of the 3 main points, and 1 card for the conclusion. You should number your cards and write on one side only. Numbering is helpful if you happen to drop your cards, and writing on only one side means that the audience is not distracted by your handwritten notes and reminders to yourself while you're speaking. Each card should contain keywords and key phrases, but not full sentences. Some speeches will include direct or extended quotations from expert sources. Some of these quotations might be highly technical or difficult to memorize for other reasons, but they must be presented correctly. This is a circumstance in which you could include an extra card in the sequence of note cards. This is the only time you may read fully from a card. If your quotation is important and the exact wording is crucial, your audience will understand that. How will note cards be sufficient? When they are carefully written, your practice will reveal that they will work. If during practice you find that one of your cards doesn't work well enough, you can rewrite that card. Using a set of carefully prepared, sparingly worded cards will help you resist the temptation to rely on overhead transparencies or PowerPoint slides to get you through the presentation. Although they will never provide the exact word sequence of your full sentence outline, they should keep you organized during the speech. The trick to selecting the phrases and quotations for your cards is to identify the labels that will trigger a recall sequence. For instance, if the phrase "more science fact" brings to mind the connection to science fiction and the differences between the real developments and the fictive events of Crichton's novel Prey, that phrase on your card will help support you through a fairly extended part of your introduction. You must discover what works for you, and then select those words that tend to jog your recall. Having identified what works, make a preliminary set of no more than 5 cards written on one side only and practice with them. Revise and refine them as you would an outline. The following is a hypothetical set of cards for the Smart Dust speech. Card 1. Introduction, 2002, Prey, Swarm Nanomachines Feed on Living Tissue. Kahns, Katz, and Peister, UC Berkeley, Engineering and Computer Sci, Professors, HYP. Microelectromechanical MEMS devices could detect light, temperature, or vibration. Thesis statement. Researchers HYP that SD could track patients warned of natural disaster, act as defense against bioterrorism. Preview. What Smart Dust is and how it works, military app, non-military app. Transition. To help understand, first, what Smart Dust is. Card 2. Dr. Chris Peister, Professor Robotics Lab, UC Berkeley, conceived the idea in 1998 in a Project Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. 2002 article by Brett Warnke entitled Smart Dust Communicating with a Cubic Millimeter Computer, published in Computer. Peister wants sensors, communication devices, and computer in a cubic millimeter package. Doug Steele of C.T. Bauer College of Bus at Houston noted grain of rice equals 5 centimeters. Each mote would interact with others. See extended quotation next card. Card 3. Quotation. Steve Lohr, New York Times, January 30th, 2005. Smart Dust? Not quite, but we're getting there. Smart Dust could eventually consist of tiny digital sensors strewn around the globe, gathering all sorts of information and communicating with powerful computer networks to monitor, measure, and understand the physical world in new ways. Card 4. Original conceptualized under DARPA, military uses THEOR and examined. Smart Dust website, battlefield surveillance, treaty monitor, transp monitor, and scud hunting. Benefit, surveil. Major Scott Dickinson, Blue Horizons paper for Center for Strat and Tech for USAF Air War College. Sees SD as help for battle space awareness, homeland security, and WMDID. Could also defeat communication jamming equipment by communicating it among itself and with civilians in combat zones. 2010 article, Jessica Griggs, New Scientist, Early Defense, Storms and Debris, Transition, Switch Gears to Daily Lives. Card 5. SD Project website, SD could become common in daily life. Pasting particles for virtual computer keyboard to inventory control POSS. Steve Lohr, 2010 New York Times. The applications for sensor-based computing, experts say, include buildings that manage their own energy use and bridges that sense motion and metal fatigue to tell engineers that they need repairs. cars that track traffic patterns and report potholes, and fruit and vegetable shipments that tell grocers when they ripen and begin to spoil. Medically, according to SD Project website, Help Disabled. Interface with computers, injected CD, relay info to docs and detect body changes instantly, cancer cells, bacteria, or virus, speed up treatment, and so on. Transition. We explain what CD is, what SD is, how SDCD could be used military, and how SDCD impact our lives. Card 6. Conclusion. Transfer fiction to fact. Experts agree potential 2025. Michael Crichton's Prey isn't reality but in development. SD as fact. There are ethical considerations. Peister, privacy. Dr. Chris Peister. As an engineer or a scientist or a hairstylist, everyone needs to evaluate what they do in terms of its positive and negative effect. If I thought that the negatives of working on this project were larger or even comparable to the positives, I wouldn't be working on it. As it turns out, I think that the potential benefits of this technology far outweigh the risks to personal privacy. Using a set of cards similar to this could help you get through an impressive set of specialized information. But what if you lose your place during a speech? With a set of cards, it will take less time to refine than it would with a full sentence outline. You will not be rustling sheets of paper, and because your cards are written on one side only, you can keep them in order without flipping them back and forth to check both sides. So what if you go blank? Take a few seconds to recall what you've said and how it leads to your next main point. There may be several seconds of silence in the middle of your speech, and it may seem like minutes for you, but you can regain your footing most easily with a small set of well-prepared cards. Understand no circumstances should you ever attempt to put your entire speech on cards in little tiny writing. You will end up reading a sequence of words to your audience instead of telling them your message.